Alrighty, so we're going to jump straight in to talk about some of the news that happened around MLS because as I kind of predicted a couple of months ago, I knew there was going to be 1 week in the MLS world where there's just so much news that, this probably might be the longest news of the week episode I've ever done. And I've already done a long news of the week episode just a couple of weeks ago, but I think this one will beat it because I think there's like 29 news topic we're going to talk about, though some of them are kind of a little bit of a repeat in terms of some of the topics I talked about in previous news of the week. And an example of that is the first news we're going to talk about, which, this was a news that happened last week, and, I know it definitely got a lot of big attention, but we kind of knew this was going to happen, and that, of course, is Lorenzo Insigne officially signing with Toronto FC, and he will indeed receive $15 million per season, and I believe they said it's going to be pre-tax in terms of the $15 million they receive. So if you want to add tax in terms of it, I think it's a little bit less. I mean, I don't know how less it is because, I don't know the tax situation there in Toronto, but I'm guessing it's probably pretty high because, taxes in Canada is much more higher than it is here in the US. But nevertheless, he will be made one of the most expensive player in league history. I think pretty close in terms of reaching the mark when David Beckham came into the league in the early 2010s. Well, actually not the early 2010, but the late 2000s, and he came into the league in a contract what was like 25 million per year. But yeah, this is definitely a big contract, and TFC won't get Lorenzo Insigne until the summer transfer window. And the thing that I think there is starting to maybe be a little bit concerned about this deal isn't just because of how much TFC is going to pay to him, and that they better hope that this guy is going to be advertised, which I think he will. I mean, I did make that bold prediction of him being the newcomer of the year during New Year's Eve, but also the fact that I've heard that he actually is suffering an injury with Napoli right now. Now, the good news is, they're not going to get him until the summer, as I said. But the bad news is, how serious is that injury going to be? Because the last thing you want is that you just literally made a big signing over the winter, and now he's not even going to be ready to play for your team as he is going to become to TFC in July. But we shall see if that's going to be the case. And again, there's a lot of expectation that's going to be put on Lorenzo Insigne's hand. And we've seen before where when players sign in big contract, especially the most expensive contract in MLS, you better live up to expectation, and you're going to be judged even more heavy here than other players, because if you don't live up to expectation, and if Insigne is not going to be a guy that's going to be kind of like that Javinko type of guy that was in TFC and just lighting up the league, then people will say that this could be one of the biggest bust move in recent time. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, is Charlotte FC, and actually, I misspelled Charlotte there. I forgot the E there. I don't want to disrespect the new boys of MLS coming into the league this season. But yeah, Charlotte FC, they have selected Maryland midfielder Ben Bender in the first overall pick in the Super Draft. So there's my usual kind of talk about the Super Draft. And for those of you wondering, am I going to do a Super Draft video? No, I'm not going to do a Super Draft kind of review. Though I will say this, I am going to kind of admit that maybe the Super Draft is not as useless as I've always said. Like, I've been one of the biggest critics in terms of the Super Draft and how I always tend to overlook them, because pretty much 9 out of 10 time when you look at some of the players that's picked in the Super Draft, and that's including in the first round, they tend to be just kind of USL Championship kind of journeymen. But occasionally there are some hidden diamonds in terms of the Super Draft, and I know there's going to be the counter argument, the fact that, guys like Daryl DK are coming from the Super Draft, and I think what was another player that recently sold off for a big amount of money? It's not Richarlia, which I'll get to, but yeah, I can't really quite think of it on top of my mind. But you get what I'm saying with the way that the Super Draft, there are some hidden diamonds, but most of the time these are probably a player that's going to be just either journeyman in MLS or guys that's going to be in the USL Championship level. And we'll see whether or not if Ben Bender is going to be that. And, obviously Charlotte, when they select him, they already said that they already have plan of him being a player to be a starter for the Charlotte FC team. And we'll see how he's going to fit. I mean, from what I heard, he not only did well with Maryland, but he was the Big Ten Player of the Year during his time with Maryland, and also was an All-American during that. So yeah, we shall see how he's going to do. And one more thing I will also say about the Super Draft is, in terms of the first overall pick, it's a very mixed bag. I mean, there's been times where I've seen some good first overall pick in the draft. One of the most famous first overall pick that turns out to be successful is Jack Harrison, when he was selected with NYCFC when NYCFC came into the league in 2015. And then we also have seen some big busts in the Super Draft that is a first overall pick. And the name that I know immediately, I can come off the top of my head, that was a huge bust that turns out to be the first overall pick, is when Minnesota select Abu Danladi. I mean, Danladi, to be fair, I will say that he did had a good first season, but then his second season was just completely fell off the cliff, and alternate loons basically cut ties with him, and he's been bouncing around the league. So yeah, the bottom line is, I think being picked first overall, there's definitely some pressure. I mean, there's I will say that it's not as big as a pressure as we've seen in other sports, where, you know, in other sports, especially like the NFL, for example, if you're the first overall pick, you're going to be really judged to be either a good pick or turns out to be a huge bust. But, you know, in MLS, it's not really kind of that same, because, as I said, Super Draft, it's not as big of a deal as we've seen in other sport. And I will always say that I think as the year goes along, and especially with now MLS decided to create a new development league and academy around MLS, is continue to improve these good players, I think the Super Draft relevance is going to continue to be less and less. But that doesn't also mean the fact that the Super Draft is completely meaningless, and that, again, you can still find some hidden diamonds in the Super Draft and stuff like that. But now, moving on, in terms of the next news, is some signings. So, Inter Miami signed Clement Diop off of free agency today, and I think that's a good signing for Inter Miami, considering the fact that Diop was very good during his time with Montreal. I mean, unfortunately, his time with Montreal was kind of cut short because he had some family issue, which is understandable. But, you know, now he's going to be joining Inter Miami, and that can continue to be such a show that quality that he has with Montreal, and not really show that bad quality that he has with the Galaxy. I mean, I remember when Diop signed with Montreal, I thought that wasn't a really good signing, because Diop was a complete flop with the Galaxy, but he proved me wrong. He turns out to be one of the most underrated goalkeeper in the league, and, you know, with Inter Miami desperately looking for a goalkeeper, knowing the fact that I think they didn't re-sign Nick Marsman to a new contract, and the same goes with John McPhee. They need a new goalkeeper, and I think Diop is going to be a decent one, and I think he is going to probably be the starter in that goalkeeping position for Inter Miami for this upcoming season. Now, moving on, in terms of the signing, that seems like a very 4D chess move that FC Dallas have made. So, Dallas decided to acquire Dom Dwyer and look to buy out his contract in exchange for $50,000 general allocation money and a third overall pick in the Super Draft coming from Toronto FC. Now, the reason why I say this is a very 4D chess move is that there's a lot to unpack here, but the easy way to say it is that Dallas decided to take Dom Dwyer contract and kind of just decided to buy out his contract and made him a free agency, because, you know, TFC didn't want to buy out Dom Dwyer contract, and in some way they didn't want to, because it's going to ruin their cap situation. So Dallas basically kind of joined in to help them out, but in order to help them out, they kind of had to demand some money in the $50K general allocation money, and also a third overall pick in the Super Draft. And, you know, knowing the fact that Dallas does have one of the best academy, it's kind of understandable why maybe sometimes they're taking the Super Draft a lot more seriously, and they want some good early picks. So, you know, this is a good business for FC Dallas to of course do, but it's also something that, you know, for TFC, like I said, they knew that they had to get rid of Dom Dwyer, and the only way to do it is that they hope that another team eventually will purchase them, and they have to, like, kind of give some compliment in terms of that, and this is basically the compliment that TFC has to give to FC Dallas in order for them to hope that one of these teams will buy out Dom Dwyer's contract. And by the way, now that Dom Dwyer is a free agency, you wonder which team maybe want to take a risk to trying to sign him. I mean, I know it's been a huge fall from grace from Dom Dwyer, where a couple of years ago he was considered one of the best number 9 in the league and was in the U.S. men's national team picture. And yeah, I mean, he just never looked the same ever since he's joined Orlando City, And, you know, we'll see whether or not if there's another team that maybe give him a second chance and hope that things is going to go well. Now, FC Dallas also have signed a defender called Nanu. I think that's how you pronounce, from Porto. Now, don't let that distract you, the fact that this is a guy that actually hasn't been a regular starter for Porto. In fact, I think he only had like 11 appearances and mostly spent time with the B team with Porto. But overall, I think this is more like a depth piece for this Dallas team, especially with the way that depth is definitely one of the issues that they have in the back line. And hopefully with him being kind of a utility player, that is going to work out for the Dallas team in terms of adding some more depth. Now, Orlando City have signed Uruguayan midfielder Cesar Araujo from Montevideo Wanderers. And speaking of depth signing, this also seems like a depth signing for Orlando City, because Orlando seems to be pretty stacked in terms of the midfield position. And this is a guy that he's one of your typical young South American player coming to MLS looking to trying to develop their career, and that there's no doubt that I think this guy will definitely get some game time, but he's more of a guy that is just going to be here for Orlando City to join a good team and hope to try to fight to get some minutes. But also it's just kind of for Orlando City to kind of get some more depth. Like, you know, a good way for teams to try to build up their depth is not only have your veteran present there in the starting 11, but, you know, if you can maybe have some young talented as part of your depth piece or just below it, it's not a bad idea too. I mean, you know, in case of some of those regular starter goes out, you give a chance to these youngsters that is hungry for minutes, and who knows, maybe they turns out to be a good talent, and you can maybe even sell them off for a profit for that. So I like what Orlando City is doing there, and I just think that that's kind of maybe some mindset that maybe GMs in the future might think about when they're looking to try to sign these talent in South America and looking for those hidden gems. Now, Charlotte FC have signed defender Christian McCoon in exchange for the #1 allocation order for Inter Miami. And overall, again, I think this is a good signing, knowing the fact that McCoon, he was kind of a utility player for Inter Miami, and there's time when he does play with the team, he have shown some good quality to be an MLS player. And, you know, it's going to be interesting with him being with Charlotte. I'm assuming he's going to be used as a depth piece too, and they didn't really give up a lot to give him. I mean, the #1 allocation order might seem like a big thing until you realize that, you know, it's not really that important, especially, you know, you only use the #1 allocation order, and what that basically means is that you basically you get the first dibs if there is like a former MLS player coming back into the league, and basically pick them up. And so far, when you look at the allocation order and the players that is eligible in terms of signing these players via the allocation order, it's not really that good. So, you know, it's no surprise that Charlotte decided to kind of get rid, and they get a decent utility kind of defender that can help their depth in terms of the back line. Now, speaking of helping being depth pieces, the LA Galaxy have signed Raheem Edwards through 2024, and, you know, Raheem Edwards, I feel like he started kind of trying to join in the challenge of becoming the greatest journeyman in MLS right now. I mean, I think in the future I'm definitely going to have to do a video talk about the greatest journeyman in MLS and talk about their story. But Raheem Edwards has started to get in there. Like, he has played with so many different clubs, and he might actually become the first player to ever play for both LA clubs, as he was with LAFC last year. But yeah, I do believe that Edwards still had some quality. I mean, I remember when he was with TFC, there was a lot of people saying that he could be the next best thing. Unfortunately, it didn't really quite work out for him. But overall, I think it's a good depth piece that the Galaxy, of course, has. And to sign a contract to 2024, that seems like a bit of a long-term commitment for a guy that, you know, hasn't really been staying with a club for more than a year or two or so. So, you know, it's going to be interesting that they sign him to a relatively lengthy contract, and we'll see whether or not in the future maybe the Galaxy are just using this in case if Raheem Edwards does very well with the team, they can maybe sell him off to another club and get some general allocation money out of that. Now, moving on, in terms of the next news, and really the next two news, as we had a couple of players in MLS have gone on loan with River Plate, and one of those players is Thomas Pochettino, who I mentioned that he was reported to be going on loan to River Plate. It is pretty much confirmed now, and the same goes with Leandro Gonzalez Perez going to River Plate after Inter Miami decided to loan them. And with both of these players, I would say that if there's one player that most likely is going to be recalled from his loan, it's probably going to be Thomas Pochettino. I mean, I think this is I said before, I think this is a good idea for Pochettino, that really kind of had a disappointing first season with Austin FC, to maybe get his confidence back by going to River Plate, maybe get some minutes, and if he develops well, then Austin can recall him, and they might finally get a number 10 that I remember when Pochettino was basically the kind of deemed as maybe the next Diego Valeri or the next Nico Ladero of the league, and even though it didn't quite work out so well for Austin FC, again, if he does well with River Plate, he could potentially live up to that potential. And as for LGP, I guess Inter Miami maybe think about recalling him. I mean, it's been an interesting career that Leandro Gonzalez Perez has had. I mean, he was definitely a very serviceable defender with Atlanta United and winning titles with them, and then he decided to go to Inter Miami, and he's been okay with Inter Miami. He definitely has shown a little bit of a regression, and not to mention he still has that problem of being a very hothead, and he is considered a player that might have received some of the most yellow cards in the league. So it's no surprise that Inter Miami feel like, what, maybe we should think about moving on from him, because it feels like that would be a good way to trying to limit the amount of yellow cards we see our player receive. But again, this seems like it's just going to be a long move, and we'll see whether or not both of these deals is going to be different. So maybe one of these deal has like an option to buy, and if I had to guess which loan player that loaned to River Plate that has an option to buy, it's probably going to be LGP, but we'll see if that is going to be the case. But now moving on in terms of the next news, and talk about some re-signing. Minnesota United re-signed defender Brent Coleman, and I believe they re-signed to a 1-year contract, and I think this is a good re-sign considering I was kind of surprised that they decided to not pick up Brent Coleman option when the Loons announced their roster move, because I thought Brent Coleman is still a decent serviceable defender. Yes, there's times that I can get very frustrated with him with sometimes his performance not being well, but he's still a guy that has been just a long time fan favorite, and a guy that I think he's probably going to be with this team for life. And when he does retire, he's going to get a lot of recognition from this Minnesota United team, because I believe he's the only member of this team that is still part of that team that came into the league in 2017. RSL re-signed Justin Meram through 2023, and again, this is a decent signing too, because Justin Meram, even though I know he isn't as good as he was during his prime, he still could be a very serviceable player, and he showed that in the time with RSL, especially coming off the bench. He could be a dangerous weapon coming off the bench and being a good super sub player. So RSL decided to keep him that and decided to re-sign him through 2023. And it's also noting the fact that there was rumors that Justin Meram could be going to another team, but yeah, RSL is making sure that is not going to be the case. Now, the Columbus Crew re-signed Evan Bush to a new contract. Again, it's a decent re-sign, knowing the fact that Evan Bush is definitely a good option as a backup goalkeeper. Like, I think Evan Bush is kind of like right around the level of being a decent starting goalkeeper, but also probably the best backup goalkeeper option in the league. And I think for the Crew, they know that they have a decent goalkeeper in Eloy Rome, but it's not bad if they have to rely on Evan Bush as their backup goalkeeper. I know last year that there were times when Bush had to step in for Rome, and he actually looked decent for the Crew, and there could be a case where if the Crew eventually decide to let him go, there might be other teams that, especially in needs of goalkeeper, might be even looking into him. Speaking of goalkeeper, Montreal have extended Sebastian Briza loan from Bologna, so there was talks about Briza potentially not coming back to Montreal. It seemed like that's not going to be the case. He is going to be coming back, and it seems like we're going to once again have that battle between Briza and Pentimus in terms of the goalkeeping spot. Like I thought last year, they really kind of rotate the goalkeeping position between Brisa and Pantemis a lot last season, and ideally you kind of don't want to do that because you want to stick with the main goalkeeper between the stake. But it's understandable why I feel like Wilfried Nancy still haven't really quite figured out who is kind of the best option in terms of that goalkeeping position, and especially there's even talks of the fact that was kind of one of the biggest issues that they need to address this off season, and that is finding the right starting goalkeeper. But if they do decide to they of course keep Pantemis and now keeping Brisa, it's going to be interesting to see this off season or even heading into next season which is exactly going to be the right option. And then finally, in terms of the last re-sign, we have the Colorado Rapids re-signing Drew Moore and Steven Beitashour to a new contract. I was kind of surprised that they decided to re-sign Steven Beitashour, knowing the fact that I thought Beitashour was getting up to that age, and I thought maybe this was kind of his final year as a professional player last season. But it seems like he wanted to give it another go, even though he is a guy that is kind of dig deep in the depth chart for the Rapids, especially in the fullback position. Though I would say that maybe they decided to re-sign him for leadership reason, because he is a guy that I think a lot of people can agree that he definitely brings that leadership presence in the locker room. And yeah, I think that's maybe one of the reasons why the Rapids decided to re-sign him. And then finally, the last news on this board, and I forgot to mention, this is not the only news on this board, so this is why I said this is going to be the longest news of the week episode, because there's actually another board that has had more news that happened in these past couple of days. And that, of course, is the San Jose Earthquakes signing Jan Greguš to a TAM contract. So, they finally did something that I was hoping that they would do, which is signing Jan Greguš only on a TAM contract. Because I was kind of concerned when they picked him up in the re-entry draft that, are they going to try to make him a DP player, even though, I know Greguš is still a great player with the Loons, and I feel kind of disappointed that the Loons decided to let him go, and especially with the way that he kind of fall out of favor with the Loons, even though he's still a decent MLS player. But I was also kind of worried the fact that the Quakes are going to make a dump move to make him a DP player, and it doesn't seem like that's the case. They seem like they only make him as a TAM player, and it's a good contract too, because if he doesn't work out, they can just move on from him without have to worry about buying out his contract or even paying too much for him. But overall, it's a good signing for him, and I expect that should be a very interesting situation with that Quakes midfield, because I know that Quakes midfield is absolutely stacked right now, and we'll see whether or not if Jan Greguš is going to get some minutes with that stacked midfield that the Quakes have. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the remaining news that has happened in these past couple of days. Alright, so moving on, in terms of next news, is Albert Rusnak, who I think he has been one of the most talked about players during this off-season, because there's been a lot of talk of him basically linking almost everywhere in MLS and including some clubs in South America. But one thing that we do know in the latest Albert Rusnak saga is that he is not coming back to RSL. And again, I am shocked the fact that RSL decided to not re-sign him, because, he is probably a player that, besides Damir Kralek, the most important player in that RSL team. So to let him walk like that, yeah, it's kind of a move that I feel like it's going to backfire for RSL later on. But now that he has announced that he is not going to be coming to RSL, boy oh boy, let's the transfer saga of Rusnak, which was already ridiculous, get even more interesting, because again, he's been pretty much linked with almost every single club. Though the latest rumor I heard is the fact that he is going to be joining the Seattle Sounders, and we'll see whether or not if that is going to be the case. And again, we'll see when exactly this transfer saga with Albert Rusnak is going to be. And it's understandable why a lot of team wants him, because he is considered the best option in terms of the number 10 position right now in the league, and especially in free agency. But now moving on, in terms of the next news, is something I kind of talked about last week, and I'll just kind of reiterate again the fact that TFC have officially transferred Richarlia to Nottingham Forest. Now, I was hoping that when I read the article of TFC decided to sell Richarlia to Nottingham Forest, that I actually get the actual deal of how much they sell him off. And unfortunately, on the league website article, I couldn't find it. Like, I didn't know exactly how much did they sell Richarlia for, but from what I heard is that it seems like it's around the 4.5 and $5 million range, which sounds about right considering the fact that Lorea is a hot prospect, but for a fullback you're not going to get as much money as like attacking players that is sold off to another team. I mean, unless you are a really good fullback or you're Alphonso Davies, which that is starts to maybe be a little bit of an outlier with a player that is not an attacking player that is sold off for big money. But nevertheless, hopefully Richarlia will get some game time with Nottingham Forest, and I wish him the best because he is a guy that is going to be with that Canadian national team for he's going to be a regular starter for that team, and there's a lot of future that he could be the future fullback for the Canadian national team. But moving on, in terms of the next news, is that Diego Valeri is reported to return to boyhood club Lioness. So, it's been confirmed that Diego Valeri is not going to be coming back to the Portland Timbers. And as sad as, it is officially the end of the year for the Portland Timbers, and especially the fact that it's going to be really strange not seeing Valeri in a Timbers jersey. I mean, it was kind of weird this year not seeing him play regularly, but it's also understandable because it looks like he really fall off the cliff with the Timbers this season. But yeah, next year it's going to be weird not seeing him, and it's kind of understandable why you want to return to Lioness because it is his boyhood club, and we've seen this so many times with some legendary player. Whenever it's near the end of their career, either they decided to choose kind of the money option, which is maybe go to Saudi Arabia or go to China. Well, not China anymore because I heard that there's some big issue, not just with how the pandemic basically originated there, but they are also having some financial issue in the Chinese Super League. But it's not surprising that you can either choose the option of going to Saudi Arabia, get one last big paycheck, or do the sensible thing, which is return to your boyhood club. And in the case of Diego Valeri, he did the sensible thing, and yeah, I think it's good for him, and especially good for him to return to the club that basically started his career, and hopefully when he does retire, of course we'll definitely make a video talk about Diego Valeri and his time in MLS, because even though he is a player that hasn't actually played in MLS as long as you have some of these legendary players, he's going to be considered one of the best number 10 in league history, and definitely the best number 10 that the Portland Timbers have ever had. Now the Union, there is a rumor that their defender Kai Wagner is getting a lot of interest from EPL, La Liga, and Bundesliga club alongside with Turkish Super League club. And again, this is not a big surprise, and probably not the first time that we have heard this news of Kai Wagner getting linked with a move to Europe. And for the Union, it's going to be interesting whether or not if this is actually the right time to sell Kai Wagner. I mean, I think last offseason there was the rumor of him potentially moving on, but it seems like he elected to stay for another year, and he definitely is one of the hottest prospects in terms of his spot in the fullback role, and we'll see whether or not if the Union is going to do so. I mean, they do sell it off. I have a feeling they're going to get a huge sum of money, but they also do lose one of their most important pieces, especially in that fullback area in Kai Wagner. Now, another player that could potentially be going to Europe soon is Adam Buxa, and another player that I thought that this offseason he could potentially be moving on from his respective MLS club. And in this case, it seems like the Revs could potentially receive $9.5 million for Adam Buxa after it was reported that he is going to be joining Serie B leader Pisa. And I think this could definitely happen, especially with the way that, if Buxa does decide to join Pisa, and the fact that they do get promoted, he has a chance to get some Serie A moment. And this is a guy that a couple of years was playing in the Polish Super League or the Polish League, and just didn't look like a guy that's going to maybe join one of those big five European league. I mean, this is another beauty of MLS, where we talk about a lot how young player goes to MLS to develop their career so they can get a big money move to Europe, but that's not always the case, and we always see maybe some European player that maybe play in a lesser league, they might go to MLS to develop their career, and who knows, they maybe get a chance to join a club that could be in a big five league. And again, this could be the case once again for Buxa, who just had an incredible year for New England. And $9.5 million might seems a little bit low, especially the year that Buxa has had. But I won't be surprised if New England is going to take that. And especially, I just have a feeling this heading into next year, knowing the fact that they're not going to have Buchanan next year and potentially not have Buxa, maybe the refs might take a bit of a step back, but it's for good reason. I mean, you want to be a club that want to sell off some of your best talent in order to make some money. I mean, that's what every MLS team is dreamed to do so, and this could once again be the case again. Now, LAFC is reported to made an offer for Cruz Azul attacker Jonathan Rodriguez and former U.S. men's national team player Julian Green. Remember Julian Green, a player that was highly noted as maybe the next Clint Dempsey and a guy that is going to control that number 9 spot for the U.S. men's national team, and also, not to mention, even score a goal in the 2014 World Cup. Well, things have not been going well for him lately. I think he's now playing like in the second division of the Bundesliga. But yeah, for LAFC, this is kind of a strange one considering they already have a good number 9 in Chicho Arango, and I thought he was going to be a player that they're going to build on alongside with Carlos Vela. And I thought maybe they were going to look for a more Diego Rossi type of replacement. And we'll see whether or not if these two players that they've been linked with could kind of fit into that Diego Rossi role. But if they're solely signing for a number 9, that's kind of an interesting choice. Consider, again, they have Chicho Arango. He's going to be the regular starter, and that I really think he is the answer to finally they get a decent number 9 that they haven't had since Diamande left them a couple of years ago. Now, their crosstown rival, the Galaxy, have also reported to link with an attacking player. This time, they're targeting Montpellier captain and attacking midfielder, and I believe it's Tijin Savania. I think that's how you pronounce. But yeah, the Galaxy are looking to trying to sign another French player, and they're trying to go to the league route, which is starting to be a little bit more common, knowing the fact that last year they signed Grandsir, and then we also know that they signed Alessandrini from Marseille a couple of years ago. But yeah, they hope that maybe he could be the guy that could be the future for number 10 for this team, and apparently they're looking to maybe made him almost well, not an almost, but a DP player too. But again, we'll see if that is going to happen, and it's still kind of mind-boggling for me that why is the Galaxy not even thinking about signing Christian Pavon when that is kind of the most obvious option for them to do so. But moving on, in terms of the next news, is that Orlando City is reported to sign Pinheiro striker Facundo Torres, and this is clearly a replacement for Daryl DK. In fact, they are actually pretty much spending almost all the money that they invested by selling Daryl DK to West Brom in order to sign this player. And we know that player is coming from Pinheiro, which is considered a powerhouse in Uruguayan soccer. Turns out to be decent player. I mean, guys like Diego Rossi comes into mind of when LAFC signed him from Pinheiro and how he developed to be a very decent player in MLS. And who knows, maybe for Lil Torres, from what I heard, I think he's like a regular starter for Pinheiro, and that if he does go to Orlando City, maybe Orlando City might have just find a good replacement for Daryl DK. But like I said, if they're going to do so, they're going to have to pay pretty much almost all the money that they invested from Daryl DK and pay $10 million to Pinheiro in order to get this guy. And now moving on, in terms of the next news, is that the Houston Dynamo is reported to sign Paraguayan striker Sebastian Ferreira. Now, apparently, I think the amount is going to be relatively steep, but that's a good thing for the Houston Dynamo, because this might be the first time we actually saw the Dynamo being very, very kind of invested in terms of making some signing and actually spend money. I mean, the Dynamo has for a long time been one of the cheapest team in MLS, and a team that has always become penny pinching. But I guess with this new ownership and this new GM, looks like the Dynamo is trying to move past that day, and we'll see if they do sign this player, and if they do spend some good money. Let's see if he is maybe going to be the future number 9 for this team, because there's a lot of hole that this Dynamo team needs to figure out, and I think their first priority is to find a future number 9 in this team. Now, speaking of number 9, and now kind of moving away from talk about signings and transfer rumors, well, I got some bad news if you're a Sporting KC fan. Alan Polito looked like he's done for the year after undergoing knee surgery, and that has to be just, again, it's remarkable how Alan Polito, we know that he has talent, and he can definitely be a guy that could be chasing for golden boots every single season, but the fact that he's been injured so much in these last couple of years, it's kind of sad to see. Though I will say that this, I know this might sound cruel, but it kind of maybe made me a little better. The fact that I think a couple of years ago when the Quakes were so close in signing out Alan Polito, and turns out they did not decide not to sign him at the very final minute, and then Sporting KC basically stole Alan Polito in front of when the Quakes were going to sign him. And while Polito, again, he has shown that he can be the most lethal goal scorer in this league, he's been injured so many times. And imagine if the Quakes had that issue. I mean, that's going to be even more of a painful issue, and maybe kind of a very classic Quakes move, where even when they get some of the best player in the league, they can't able to stay healthy. So yeah, I mean, again, but overall, for Sporting KC, this has to suck. And now you just wonder, do they maybe reconsider trying to sign Robert Beric now? Because I heard a couple of days ago they decided to not sign Robert Beric to a contract after picking him up in the re-entry draft, and I'm pretty sure they're reconsidering it right now because, the only good number 9 option that they had is Kyrie Shelton, and Kyrie Shelton is a decent number 9, but he's not Alan Polito level. And not to mention, Sporting KC also might not have Gadi Kinda for the beginning part of the season. So this Sporting KC team heading into the season is going to be a little bit short-handed, and once again, is going to heavily rely on Johnny Russo. And although Johnny Russo has been a one-man wrecking crew during his time and has regularly carried the Sporting KC attack on his back, you just wonder the fact that, for Sporting KC, they might think about making some signings in this off season to, I won't say replace Alan Polito, but maybe make some signing that makes sure that you have a decent attacker there that can be in place for Polito. And this also goes back to what I said about Beric. Sign. As much as I know Beric could be very, very inconsistent, he is still a guy that when he's on, he can really be a decent striker. So again, I feel like they're definitely going to be reconsider that option, and I'm not sure if they're allowed to, because again, they said no to giving Beric a contract. But with now Polito being out for the remaining year, it seems like that they're going to change their minds right now. But yeah, moving on in terms of the next news, and this is definitely going to be on Meme Monday on the MLS Reddit page. So NYCFC, for a long time they've always had problem with their stadium issue, and how, if you want to know why Yankee Stadium is one of the worst stadium and creates such a problem for this team, well, this is another example, because they're not even allowed to play their CCL match at Yankee Stadium, as it was announced that they're going to have to move their game to somewhere else against Santos Lane. And instead of, you would think that they play at Red Bull Arena, that seems like it's not going to be the case. And apparently the reason why they're not going to play at Red Bull Arena is it seemed like there's a conflict event that not allow NYCFC to play their CCL game at that stadium. So instead, they decided to do something that I don't think I've ever seen an MLS team do, and that is play basically across the other side of the country for a CCL match. And this game is now going to be taking place at Bank of California Stadium. Now, I will say this, logistically, this makes perfect sense, because NYCFC is going to be playing against the LA Galaxy a couple of days after this CCL match, so it's understandable that they decide to stay in LA and just play their game, and they don't even need to travel very far for their next game. But, this, again, just reiterate in terms of the problem that NYCFC has had, and especially if you're a fan of this team. I mean, I know NYCFC fans are still kind of in that honeymoon period of them still in disbelief that they finally win an MLS Cup before the Red Bulls has done. But the fact that, the stadium issue is still a big problem, and it's just getting to a point where, I hope eventually they do get a new stadium. I mean, I heard a lot of NYCFC fans said it's going to happen, especially with the new mayor in, and it seems like that he's putting that in a pretty big priority. But until I actually believe that there is shovel on the ground and there actually is a deal that NYCFC is finally building a new stadium, I'm not gonna believe it. I mean, this has been a nightmare for a team that even with winning MLS Cup, they will always kind of be on the butts of jokes of MLS and always on Meme Monday about the stadium issue, because it just does not work out. So yeah, I mean, if you're an NYCFC fan, I don't know what to say other than the fact that I guess maybe they'll travel to watch this game. I mean, first of all, I don't even know if there's going to be fans in attendance of this game. And if there is going to be fans in attendance, how many people are we going to see at that stadium? Like, that would probably be one of the most empty stands at a game at Bank of California Stadium I think I've ever seen. And that's even when the pandemic was happening and when they were in limited capacity for some of those LAFC games early this season. And then finally, FC Cincinnati president Jeff Berding have officially stepped down from the club, though he is actually going to be staying with Cincinnati and become the co-CEO of the club. Now, I think from what I heard from FC Cincinnati fans, I don't think Jeff Berding is the biggest issue of this team. And I know there's always a lot of hate, especially from Cincinnati fans, about their front office being absolutely garbage and have ridiculed a lot of them making bad decisions to get them winning 3 straight wooden spoon. But I think Jeff Berding, from what I heard, he's been doing a good job with FC Cincinnati, at least with the merchandising and the branding thing of the club, and that it really kind of attract a lot of fans to come to the game. Like, you go to Cincinnati and you mention FC Cincinnati name, I'm pretty sure a lot of people in Cincinnati will know who they are. So, that has to give a lot of credit in terms of him doing a good job in terms of the marketing aspect. And now he, of course, become the co-CEO of the club. I'm guessing he's going to basically pump more money to this team. And, one thing that I will also say that Cincinnati at least have not done badly is spending. They have spent a lot of money lately. So you can't just blame the fact that they suck mainly because they haven't spent. It's just the transfer that and the decision that they've been making has been just absolutely horrible with the old front office. But like I said, with this new front office and pretty much this union-esque front office with Chris Albright and Pat Noonan as the head coach, I expect this team should be much better. And again, with Berding going to be in a co-CEO, it's not going to really affect that this team is going to be as worse as they have been in these last couple of years. But either way, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all these news? And like I said, there's just so much news that I gone over, and there is a chance that I didn't mention some news that has happened these last couple of days. But let me know in the comments below if that is the case. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.